there, we're joined by James Townsend from Mobilise today. Hi, James, how are you?
Hi, Nick. Yeah, I'm doing very well, thank you. Good to see you.
Great, no, thank you so much for joining us. Just before we get started, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your link to MS?
Sure. Yeah. My name's James. I'm co-founder and CEO of Mobilise. We're an online community for many thousands of people across the country who are caring for a family member, friend, and many of them are caring for somebody with MS. But perhaps more importantly, I'm son to my mum. She was diagnosed with MS when I was about 6. A connection to MS has been something for me throughout my life, really.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And could you tell us a little bit more about what that was like when your mother was diagnosed?
Yeah, hey, I was 6, I don't remember very much about it at all. The little bit that I do remember was that there was a big conversation that this was perceived to be a big deal, and I got a little flyer from the NHS with some cartoon characters in it trying to explain what MS was and what this might mean. And perhaps this is partly my mum's personality because after we'd had that conversation, we just got on with life really, and I can't really tell you how it was different because I've never lived in a family that doesn't have an MS diagnosis. But I think what's been really striking is looking at how my mother has responded. She's always been an extremely active person. She's a farmer, and I think the diagnosis kind of spurred her on quite a lot to make sure that she was absolutely making the most of what she could do in the years that she had that opportunity. And I think that's a key part of her response. So for me, growing up was just making sure that we were supporting her in that really.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And for yourself, what was that like growing up in a family where your mother is living with MS?
Well, as I say, there are very few bits that I can point at and say, that was because of the MS. There's families are such kind of messy, complicated things. It's quite hard to pinpoint that. And actually, I think from my experience through supporting the community of carers in Mobilise, I think that's probably quite common actually, that these things sort of bleed into one another, and some of it is personality, some of it is condition. I mean, a regular conversation in our household was planning ahead, thinking about different scenarios and what that might look like, and perhaps confronting some of the more difficult conversations more readily than we might have otherwise done, because it was clear that we were going to need to be ready for my mum's condition um, to progress. I think when I was younger, I probably um, tried a bit harder to second guess how my mum was coping and what she would need from me, and try to intervene a bit more. Certainly when I was kind of student and in my 20s and so on. These days, actually, I approach it very differently. And that's partly been informed by the carers that I'm talking to on a daily basis through Mobilise. And that is to say, well, look, you're in charge. I am here and ready to help with whatever you need as you go along, but it's for you to ask for that rather than me to rush in and take control. And I think it's really important to make sure that my mum is in control of her situation. Um, so many things in life don't afford you that luxury. So it's important that I give that. And look, sometimes it's quite hard for me to watch my mum struggle with stuff, but it's important to me she's choosing to approach it in that way. Um, and I know that she knows she can ask for help whenever she needs it. Um, and crucially, that kind of leaves a bit of space for her to be my mum as well, because family dynamics, particularly with caring responsibilities introduced, can be very complicated. And I think it's really important that my mum has space to be a mother as well as somebody who has MS. That's only part of her personality.
Wow, yeah, that's such a different perspective shift, isn't it? And it's empowering, and it gives, the person who's living with MS that control, as you were saying. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, and James, could you tell us a little bit about Mobilise and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I I was really frustrated that we as a family effectively had to kind of figure this out from first principles. We knew some people who had received an MS diagnosis, who were kind of friends. So we got a bit of a heads up from that sort of thing. But basically, it felt like we were the first people ever to deal with this problem, which is crazy
Mm,
because you've got, well, I mean, I don't know how many families there are supporting someone with an MS diagnosis, but there's shed loads, right? We are definitely not alone in this, and yet it can feel like that. So what what I wanted to do through Mobilise, along with my co-founder Suzanne, Suzanne's been caring for her husband who has young onset Parkinson's. We wanted to say, well, how can technology potentially help us connect together? And we take our name from the idea that we are mobilizing the knowledge, the wisdom, and the expertise of the many thousands of people who've been at this, often for quite a long time. So we've got a forum, we've got resources, blogs, tools, whatever you like. And so much of this is about the information, the practical guidance, and the know-how. But actually, I think a really big part of it is the emotional connection. Talking to someone who can say, yeah, I know what this is like. I was in the situation that you're describing 6 months ago. Let me metaphorically hold your hand while you're going through that. And I think that is a real game changer.
yeah, it's powerful, isn't it? To be able to talk to other people who are in the same situation. Yeah, yeah. And why do you think that that sort of community element is so important, James?
Well, I think there's a lot of, well, there's two things here, right? One is any caring role can be hugely isolating. So being surrounded by people who are going through the same thing is a really important form of support. Then the second piece is that you've got an ability to tap into information and advice that you're actually going to act on. So there's some behavioral psychology research which says if you read a blog or read a leaflet or a flyer in the GP surgery that encourages you to do a thing, and you think, oh yeah, no, I should do that. That's a good idea. There's a fair chance that you then will forget about it and not take that action. Whereas if you've got a connection to somebody who has taken that advice previously and can report to you what that meant for them, you're much more likely to actually do it. So this is, I mean, in some ways, perhaps it's a little bit manipulative, but hopefully, in an entirely supportive way, we're able to encourage each other to actually get the things done, which will make a difference in the long run. Um, and I think that's really important. When we're caring for other people, we can forget to care for ourselves. But if we've got other people looking out for that and keeping us accountable, we can make this work.
Yeah, I was just thinking that sounds like me when you say read something online and then yeah, knowing that I should be doing exercise or eating better or whatever it is. So yeah,
Well, and
absolutely.
actually,
Yeah,
that's a good example, Nick. So how many
yeah,
people have heard of the couch to 5K or something? If you're doing that on your own, really hard work. If you're
mm,
doing it with a mate down the road and you can have a giggle about, how you want a pasty afterwards or whatever that might be, actually you are much more likely to do it. And I think that's really key. We're social beings, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so how does it work? So if is it you're sort of online with the communities, or do you have sort of other spaces that people interact?
Yeah, so there's a network of local organizations set up to support carers, and we work alongside them, complementing their offer in all sorts of ways. We have an app. It's on the App Store. You can download it, called Mobilise, and in there you can link in with people locally or nationally, um, with particular interests. So that we've got a group for carers of people with MS. In there, there might be all sorts of other things. And that will link you through to a lot of the not just the people, but the resources and the information that's been collected from our network of 100,000 odd carers across the country.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. Yeah, yeah, it's really, really important, isn't it? And for people to have that connection, and there's a lot of people out there who feel quite isolated, and we hear that frequently across our online spaces is that people are feeling very isolated, and it's
Yeah.
difficult to connect with people who are going through something similar. So no,
Well, and
it's so important.
you're right, Nick, and
Yeah.
the one of the things that I find really interesting in our community is, some of the difficult things that we want to talk about are hugely private and sensitive. So you can't just sort of waltz into some chat room and merrily talk about how the impact of MS on your sex life or whatever it might be. So actually building relationships of trust and respect between you, and that might be sharing a picture of your dog doing something daft in the garden or something like that. But you're creating a connection that builds trust that then enables you to talk with confidence about some of the really complex things that you wouldn't normally want to be talking to strangers about.
Thank you, James. This sounds really, really interesting. For anyone who's listening to this, who's not quite sure if it's the right thing for them, is it just for people who are kind of full-time carers and they've made that decision to do that? Or is it for people who maybe might have, some caring responsibilities from time to time when that person needs it?
Oh, that's a really great question, Nick. And it's something I'm really passionate about because I've never really identified myself as a carer, but you don't have to identify as a carer with a capital C to know that you have caring responsibilities. And I think there's a huge number of people in that position who may not be full time, they may not be doing it in person, but caring is often a team effort. And we want to make sure that this community and this resource is available to the full range of people. And actually, um, catching people who might have relatively light touch caring responsibilities, as you say, periodically, or it might just be a few hours a week. If we can provide the right support to them at that early stage of a caring journey, then it can make all the difference to their confidence as that situation progresses.
Thank you. No, that's amazing. And where can people find out more about what you do?
Sure. Well, if you hop on to mobilise.co.uk, Mobilise with an S, you can find out all of the things that we're doing, or you can download the Mobilise app from the App Store. And yeah, we'd love to hear from anybody who's got some caring responsibilities. There's a budding MS community within our group, so there will be plenty of people to say hello to you.
Thank you. No, that sounds amazing. And just before we wrap up, James, do you have any tips for people who have caring responsibilities, and for anyone who, is in a position where someone is caring for them?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I don't know if this is my advice, but certainly some of the advice that I pick up from the community that we're working with. The first thing, and actually this really resonates with me in launching a startup as well, is focus on what is good enough. Um, if you care about somebody, if you love somebody, you want the care that you're providing to be perfect. And that is just not realistic. The caring is messy, difficult, complex. So really pin down what are the things that are really important, and then some of the other things can slide. If you're worried about the house being a bit of a mess, well, you know what? Actually, maybe it's going to be a mess. That's you don't need to stress yourself out about that. If keeping the house nice and tidy is your important thing, then let's focus on that, and there'll be something else that you can let go. I think being reasonable with yourself about what your expectation is key. The second thing I'd say is don't be afraid to piss people off, right? If you've got friends who are offering to help, be comfortable saying, like, this specifically is what I need from you. And hey, if they don't feel comfortable with that, then they're probably not the good friend that you're expecting. So be comfortable being really specific and asking people for support and help. And you'll be amazed how many people will step up to that in a really confident way. And the final top tip from people in the Mobilise community is whenever you're speaking to a professional, write down beforehand, pen and paper, make a note on your phone, whatever it might be, write down the questions that you want to be asking and what you want to get out of that conversation. Because as soon as you sit down with, it might be the GP, it might be the nurse, it might be a social worker, or it might be a whole range of people. those conversations can get really complex and difficult. So having stuff written down when you go in will give you the confidence to make sure you get out of it what you need to.
Such good tips. Yeah, thank you so much, James, and thank you very much for joining us today. Really, really appreciate it. And yeah, looking forward to seeing more of what Mobilise does and the way that you support the community as well. So thank you.
A treat to be with you, Nick. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.